everyone. Thank you for joining to hear about Indegy. Indegy is focused on protecting critical infrastructure from cyber threats. We'll talk in a minute about what's critical infrastructures and what's the difference between typical enterprises. A few words about the team before that. So Indegy has been running around for almost 2 years now. I'm Barak Perlman, the CEO and one of the co-founders of Indegy. And the reason why we started to build Indegy is because of our background, professional experience. Most of my personal days were in the IDF, the Israeli military intelligence. And for a decade there, we got lucky enough to handle with both cybersecurity on different aspects, but more interesting than that is industrial control systems, or SCADA systems, if the name means anything to you, and if not, we'll talk about it in a minute. In these 2 years, we raised a single round of financing, $6 million. Perhaps worth noting in here that the lead investor, Mr. Shlomo Kramer, he was himself one of the founders of Checkpoint back in the day, Imperva, first investor in Palo Alto Networks, etc., which is a great addition to the team. The R&D center is located in Israel and the sales office in Texas. We officially launched the company and the product last February, a few months ago, and since then already seeing major market traction with Fortune 100 companies in the pharmaceutical, automotive, and oil and gas industries. Elaborate on that in the... So ICS, Industrial Control Systems, or critical infrastructures, also SCADA systems. What are they? Where are they? Essentially, if you think about any process that has a physical component in the end of it, a physical component that we need to control, we need to monitor. You can think of power plants, the generators, and the turbines. You can think of pipelines, the valves and compressor stations, water dams, manufacturing facilities, even transportations, railroads, etc. All of these industries have the physical components we need to monitor. And if you think about a turbine and how you want to manage, what's responsible for running that turbine? What's responsible to making sure the temperature doesn't go too high or the pressure goes too low? If you would choose how to design such a system, you would probably not choose a Windows computer as a reliable 24/7 instrument for 10 years. And that's why we have these designated industrial control systems. So the vendors playing the game here is not Microsoft and Oracle. These are Siemens, General Electric, Rockwell, Honeywell, and that bunch. When talking about critical infrastructures, all of the examples I gave before, what are the threats we're talking about? So one of the good things and opportunities that Indegy has is that this market is really just starting to come to life in the past 2 to 3 years, and no security measures have been implemented in any way. Not to protect from malwares, from nation states, cyber terrorists, which makes great news and headlines, but the fact is that our customers are even more concerned about what they call the insider threat. Employees in the company that didn't get a raise for the past decade, or system integrators that all of these industries are heavily reliant on letting system integrators come with their own laptops into the facility, provide maintenance, and sometimes disrupting things in the process, either maliciously or even simply because of negligence. When Indegy says cybersecurity or cyber incidents, we mean all of these threat vectors. A bit about the technology and what we're doing and why is it different from typical IT security devices. Well, I mentioned already that the Windows machines in the enterprise networks are not the most critical piece when looking at the ICS network, the Industrial Control System network. Without diving in too deep right now, the components known as PLCs or RTUs, generically industrial controllers. These are the components that Siemens, Rockwell, Honeywell, ABB manufacture and provide. These are the components that control the entire life cycle of our turbines, valves, pumps, manufacturing plant. These devices are completely proprietary, designed late 80s, have no cybersecurity wasn't the concept even back then, have no security measures. They inherently trust everything that shares the network with them. So any hacker or malware or human being that wants to interact with this system and change the configuration of how our manufacturing line or turbine works can easily do so if he knows the proprietary communications type of these devices. From the security perspective, all current IT measures have no visibility into what's going on with these controllers. So if we go and talk to a security professional at PG&E or an engineering manager and ask him, what were the latest changes in that PLC, either from an operational perspective, but more on the cybersecurity perspective. They will usually have no idea. And that's where Indegy comes into play. What we provide is a network appliance, so it's a very seamless deployment, connecting to one or more of the switches in the network in a typical IDS deployment. We have two main mechanisms. The first one is that we monitor all the traffic going back and from these industrial controllers, and our specialty here is analyzing and recognizing all of these vendor proprietary undocumented, vendor-specific undocumented industrial protocols from such vendors as I mentioned before. We're not only doing that because monitoring the network is simply not enough in these cases. When we think about endpoints, we think about the PLCs, the industrial controllers, and not the Windows machines. And that's because that system integrator can take his own laptop and connect directly to the industrial controller. If I'm an oil and gas company and have hundreds of miles of pipelines, I'm also concerned about what we call physical cyber attacks. People coming to one of the compressor stations can break inside because it's unmanned, connect directly to the devices. Doesn't matter how much I monitor the network, you can think of it as someone opening your laptop, deleting a document, and going home. No firewall in the world will help against that. So besides just sniffing the traffic in the network, we added a second component that has the ability to communicate with the PLCs, with the industrial controllers themselves. Some sort of a remote endpoint protection. We query the devices, we take a complete image of their entire memory structure, and we do this periodically, giving the ability to compare every time, every hour, for example, what changed in the devices, giving the security manager all the information he needs about possible changes in the most sensitive devices in his network, whether this change was done from the network, physically on the device, by a malware, by an employee. That's the Indegy guarantee, so to speak. When I mentioned that we have a great opportunity in this sector, which still has pretty much nothing today, just starting to pick up, and we have an opportunity to bring much more than a simple or one security feature. Well, if I mentioned that, that the first most important thing in a network are these industrial controllers, well, my favorite question when sitting down with a plant manager is how many of these devices do you have? Usually then starts an argument. Everyone's searching for that manual Excel sheet from last year that they update every 2 years, perhaps. They don't even know what they have in their network. Something that is trivial in IT networks. Having a management operation system, I will know how many devices I have, what's the versioning of them, doesn't exist in the OT network. So I'll run pretty fast through that. First of all, know what needs to be protected. One of the advantages, because we are able to communicate with each and every device, means that we get asset discovery for free. We get asset management automatically updated for free as well, thus giving the first step, which is visibility, which is actually the foundation block for security, in my opinion. After we know what we have in our network, that's when we start monitoring all the changes to these devices, as I mentioned before, using sniffing of the traffic, using communication with the end devices themselves, being able to collect all the information about changes. Again, visibility. Once we have all the information in the network, now we can put on the security layers, the alerts, behavioral analysis, policies, etc., etc. To wrap this up, because we're running out of time, one of the unique things that Indegy can bring to the table, one of the major business challenges here is that when I go and talk to, let's say, the PG&E, for example, who is responsible for the manufacturing plant's security? Is it the plant manager or is it the IT security department? Well, the fact is that it's still undecided in almost every industry that we mentioned before. So a company dealing with this space has to bring value to both sides of the mattress. So when we talk to IT security, we can mention all the things about real-time activity monitoring that we talked about before, changes in the most critical components, risk assessment for each and every PLC, because we already have all the information, why not provide you with the open ports list, outdated firmwares, etc. When we go and talk to the plant manager, who doesn't care a lot about cybersecurity, we'll mention all the operational value he gets, because now his out-of-date Excel sheets are automatically updated using our asset discovery. Now that he didn't have any idea what his system integrator did last week, now he gets all the documentation for free because he implemented a device which gives us the support of the plant managers to back for the IT security wishes, and that's what gives us the penetration into customers. Thank you very much.